Welcome, Foul Tarnished. You are listening to Elden Kings, an Elden Ring discussion. Tonight's topic is everything Elden Ring PvP, from the latest free Colosseum update to the meta to the well-crafted guides assembled over on the website eldenringpvp.net. Joining us to that end is Kosorm and HonestFaraday, admins from the Elden Ring PvP Discord that have contributed to the website as well. On top of that, both are experienced PvPers that know the ins and outs of the technical aspects of the game better than I. Welcome to the roundtable hold, guys. How are you doing today?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well.
I'm doing well. Perfect actually. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So, getting right into it, I'm assuming you guys have been playing the latest Elden Ring patch with the Colosseum update.
Yeah, quite a bit actually.
Little too much. If anyone's gonna be saying anything, yeah, a little too much.
Yeah, I think I've already gold ranked in duels and united combat, so I'm right there with you. What do you think of the 2v2s and 3v3s, the newest group combat system? We weren't able to get that very naturally in the PvP before.
I think the 2v2s and 3v3s are where the newest update shines the most. I think it's actually duels where it's mostly lacking.
Yeah, right when it started, I tried out the duel system for a bit, and I said that it should be a best of three. Like, that was my initial idea. So I was sort of pleased to see that United Combat had, like, the lesser-known two-combatant system, where it was essentially a duel, but you'd respawn infinitely with Estus. It just feels a bit lacking, I agree.
I think the main issue with the Colosseum update, for duels anyways, I think it's great for 2v2s and 3v3s, other than maybe letting a few physics in that shouldn't. But as far as duels go, the main issue is the arena size. It's actually quite massive, which makes positioning and cornering aspects of PvP that you don't really have to worry about, and it kind of completely shifts how pressure works. Kind of similar to Main Academy Gate, honestly, which is also another arena we left behind a little bit.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed while playing myself. If the arena's big enough, both players seem to have to make a concerted decision to fight each other rather than backpedal and wait for an opening. So, without a
Exactly.
way to corner, there's no way to put adequate pressure.
I will say the 2v2s and 3v3s seem to be the most like fleshed out of the new game modes. Just the absolute chaos of the 3v3s, the tactical switching between opponents of the 2v2s. It really adds a new fresh dynamic to how you fight in this game. Really have been loving it a lot.
Yeah, I think out of all of the recordings I've made for the PvP in the Colosseum so far, the 2v2s have been my favorite, but both group combats, the dynamicism of switching opponents and having to shut down AoE spams, or have to, like, seeing strong players that are good at melee combat, like, not instinctively, but like intentionally go after weaker opponents that they know they can kill over and over. It's really interesting how that all develops.
Yeah, I'd say that's one of the strengths of Elden Ring, more than previous games. Is that the framework for 2v2s and 3v3s. It comes so naturally to Elden Ring, where even in Dark Souls 3, there were 2v2 tournaments that happened, and they were a lot of fun. But there just wasn't as many options, and you couldn't find as many people willing to do them, and the systems available were a little lacking. So I'm really happy with how they're implemented in Elden Ring.
As someone that's played DS3 and probably tried the duo PvP more than I have, because I sort of dropped out of it once after, like initially after release, when invasions and PvP sort of died out a little. But what do you think is the major difference between the duos in DS3 and Elden Ring? Is it like the spell options? Is it the player aggression? Or
I think it mostly comes down to how you actually play the game. I think the play styles that are encouraged in Elden Ring and the uh the fundamental differences between Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, mechanic wise, makes 2v2s and 3v3s a lot more fun in Elden Ring. And by fundamentals, I mostly mean stuff like how different even it is to space attacks and neutral skips through jump attacks and such. There's just a lot more room for aggression that wasn't necessarily there. I mean, even monkey mashing, as it's called in the community, where you just kind of sit there and spam into an opponent because passive poise is now a thing, leads to a lot more interesting interactions in 2v2s and 3v3s than maybe it would in previous games.
Okay. And do you think this change in fundamentals has lessened the dueling aspect because it removes some of the more complicated things that can happen between 1v1s? Or do you think it's for the better overall?
I think it absolutely is to the detriment of duels, sadly. But I think that it's also something that has been getting better as the game has been patched. When the game released, dueling was just in an awful state, and it was it was really bad. But the devs have definitely shown that they do care about the PvP and have been making strides in fixing a lot of the issues that were present at launch and more fine tuning the balance uh, to a better place. Still a far way to go though.
Yeah, from what I've seen, most of their updates thus far have been mostly to do with the multiplayer and trying to balance the general PvP side of the game. So I feel like they've definitely got that attention to detail there.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier.
It's been very nice to see their new, like, this renewed focus on the PvP side of things. The new systems they've been putting in place to differentiate between crouch attacks or PvP damage and rolling attacks, and like they really have been fine tuning things in a way that they haven't before, and it's really been gratifying that they actually are paying attention to what we're saying and what we've been wanting to go on.
Yeah, and skipping ahead in topics a little bit, I know that you guys have helped compile a decent amount of information about the balance of Elden Ring, and you've even been able to communicate that with From Software a little bit through your website, eldenringpvp.net.
In subsequent patches, uh, even down to the values that we suggested and the ways certain things are implemented, are very much telling that there is a very good possibility that they took it straight from the website. It would actually be kind of surprising if they didn't, based on the specific changes that were made.
That's awesome to hear that you guys were able to like accurately define good changes to recommend and then that they took them to heart.
Yeah, it was actually really nice to see.
I mean, it makes sense to me. Uh, at this point, what do you think of the meta that's developed in Elden Ring, with your help and without your help, as people find new weapons and Ashes of War that shine better than the others?
The meta, oh man, the meta has been so fun to watch this time around. I've been playing these games for a while. Really started from launch with Elden Ring. Wanted to get into it and really dive into how things were gonna like fold out. The meta, I mean, HTS being so unknown early on, and then getting to be one of the titans that it is nowadays. The two vortex classes and then everything else, house stock player. It just everything seems to have woven around itself in this really kind of beautiful way. Um, it's left a little bit by the wayside. I think, you've got axes and stuff that are still kind of fairly uh, cemented in off meta use. But you've got, I think, one of the better metas in the Souls games going on here, in my opinion, at least.
I would
Um,
definitely agree.
it definitely feels like you've got a good variety of play styles, and that they're kind of balanced to bounce off of each other.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I've been also watching the meta since launch, but from a much more casual perspective. Like, I'm not even sure what HTS stands for instance, if you don't mind me asking.
Oh, my bad. Heavy thrusting sword, great epee and Godskin Stitcher.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I used the
Yeah,
Godston Stitcher in PvE and PvP, so okay, I'm right there
yeah,
with you.
yeah. It took a while for that to enter into the meta. For the first few months, people kind of slept on it. They didn't know about the true combo. They didn't know about the different, like, just the extremely good frame data on its attacks. Um, and then once people started getting used to things, started trying stuff out, Frosty brought it into a tourney and did extremely well with it. I know some people who have put it to work for months now and are people who I'd call masters on the setup. Um, it it's it's been so interesting seeing the meta develop over this whole time, and then also be changed as FromSoft has changed things themselves. Uggs no longer being the king of things as it used to be, um, or sorry, colossal swords. But yeah, the HTS would be and then the Bloody Helix, also another great one.
I've seen that one used to very like very effectively in the Colosseum so far. It feels like a lot of builds are that are tuned for specific purposes, just vastly outclass other casual builds. I know that I took some of my lower level stuff, like I had a dual axe build that was purely about doing L1 punishes that I realized was just ineffective at ever hitting someone in a duel because every player has the basic ability to dodge things. So what do you think about like the vast difference in what can be potentially built up, like from the meta with Moonveil or double Great Spears or stacking Poise for that matter?
I think that, at least in my opinion, Faraday, correct me with this if I'm wrong, but I think this game, as well as all the other games in this series, it's just kind of how it is. Setups will be vastly better than others, and it's important to try to get as many setups as possible to be viable. And I think Elden Ring is doing that better than other games. Like for example, in Dark Souls 3, um, the meta setup, other than like Murky Hand Scythe, which nobody with any respect would use because it was actually just like impossible to hit at times, and it had the wrong hit stun data. You'd have what's it called, curve swords, fast curve swords, and that was basically it. There was Goddard's with offhand S-Stock, which was good, but still couldn't really touch curve swords much. Even Sword and Board in Dark Souls 3 couldn't really touch curve swords much. At the top level, that's all you'd really see. Um, Now, and with Elden Ring, they've kind of fixed it somewhat with now you have setups like power stance straight swords and power stance great spears, or even just power stance spears, heavy thrusting sword, two-handed thrusting sword, both of which did get a nerf patch 1.08, but are still very formidable in their own right. There's a lot of options to go forward with, some slightly better than others, but they are all mostly equal to each other. Like good players will be able to compete with each other on any of those setups. And I think that's just going to keep improving as the game gets patched more.
I think that's really the if I have anything to add, it's that it's as things are improving, they're bringing weapons up into line with the meta setups that have emerged. Um, you've got better frame data on a lot of weapons. You've got better recovery times on a lot of weapons. Um, it's getting to the point where a good player can use off meta things and is able to beat a lot of people in the game. Which I really appreciate that they've been able to get the balance to where it is, as opposed to where it was in Dark Souls 3, where anything other than Curved Sword was off meta, it felt like sometimes. Exactly like you were saying.
Yeah, both very good points. The emergence of attack rating premium weapons that just have inherently good frame data that goes after like inherent roll catches to the weapon combo or has certain true combos like you say with the HTS. is very good, but like Faraday added, it's offset by the idea that this class of weapons are only good enough to a certain extent, and then can be matched by other weapons. Like, personally, I've used Loretta's Warsickle and the Wing of Estelle quite a bit, and it's been able to trump a decent chunk of people using those weapons. Until I got to like gold rank, and then I was fighting people that actually knew what they were doing on top of having the weapons, so it was a bit rougher. But yeah, very good points on both accounts. So, when you've played in the Colosseum so far, I'm sure both of you have been inflicted with the constant spell spam and AoE spam that happens in those 3v3s, and it's super fun to see the entire battlefield become dangerous. But what do you think of some of the more specific chaotic spells like Death Rancor, Stars of Ruin, or the Sacred Relic Sword, for instance?
There is always going to be, I think, a defining line in these games between the meta spells and the off meta spells. I love seeing these like Elden Stars. I love seeing Death Rancor, Stars of Ruin. Not so much. I'm a little tired of looking at that animation, but uh, Grail's Roar, the and the Dragon Breath's not gonna lie, those annoy me a little too. But no, I mean, so you've got your duelist spells that are like Slicer, or what Slicer used to be. Uh, Catch Flame. You've got, just a couple other ones that are pretty rigid in their usage, but definitely do work. And then you've got Chaos, which are like what you've listed. You've also got Rose's Summons, I think that one, or Tibia's Summons. There we go. Um, and which I love throwing that out there just in the middle of a fight, just three skeletons running in.
That's
There's
what makes 3v3s and 2v2s good, honestly, is just how chaotic they
absolutely
get. That's them
it's
at their best.
it doesn't matter how, bad the startup on a spell is if you've got two other people covering your cast. You are able to get those silly big goofy spells out there and fill up an entire screen full of, little holy bolts and explode people, and it's beautiful. So I think going forward, you'll definitely see some more Dragon Breath. I think, and you'll see any of those big AOE's are gonna come in, just because nuking people in a 3v3 is really funny. I've seen somebody put Scarlet Aeonia to good work, sniping people out of duels in a 3v3.
Yeah, Scarlet Aeonia was one of the ones that surprised me, but I was really pleased to see that people found a good use for it, and it's like land, and then the aftermath explosion is so good for roll catching. That and Flame of the Fell God were two like very seldom used spells that I was happy to see in Colosseum that were actually effective now.
Yeah, no, it really is nice to see these lesser used spells able to like get brought up into a use where, because that's exactly what these group duels are for, is for that element of chaos and being able to get those big casts out. Really nice to see things kind of different. I want to see a different meta develop in for 3v3s, for 2v2s than it is for 1v1s.
I think that could absolutely happen if we introduced the communication between both teams. Because then you could have coordinated spellcasters with cover buffing each other, and I think that could introduce a very whole new meta all on its own, where certain team combos might be very indomitable, so to say.
That's
Oh yeah.
actually my favorite change that they made compared to Dark Souls 3's arena system is that now you can actually set a password just for your team, which in Dark Souls 3, the password would be set for every single participant. I don't remember necessarily if you were even able to pick teams. I think you could like choose you'd rather be on team A or team B, but it was still a little random. But the way they have it implemented now is perfect in my opinion. So
I
now
would
you can just
agree.
queue up with your team and then have random people join in on their teams and just see what you can do.
So finishing out our general conversation on the latest patch, are there anything like balance changes that were inherent to patch 1.8 that you'd like to speak about in general?
I mean, me personally, the Shunter fix, the Serpent Hunter fix, um, the that really brought. So I'm not sure if you're aware, Serpent Hunter used to be broken on its attacks, on a couple of its attacks, didn't have the right damage values, so they were doing much lower damage than they should have. Um, they fixed it in this patch, and it's beautiful now. It really is. It went from a sort of off meta, like, yeah, it can be good setup, to a firmly in the meta setup, which is really nice because I've been putting it to work for a while now. Seeing seeing axes get a speed up. I've seen somebody put hand axes to work as an offhand instead of Shamshir or Estok, which is really fun to see. That you've got a hatchet in your offhand instead, and are just swinging that thing around. Warped Axe was doing some good stuff. They really did bring a couple things back into the fold where I think they were a little lost before. It's very nice.
I like the idea of some sort of madman just using the hatchet as a quick follow-up to their main attacks to roll
Oh,
catch.
it's so funny. Just somebody with a giant halberd throwing flames out of it, and then just swiping you with that little hatchet and their offhand, that just for that extra 300 damage.
So getting into Elden Ring PvP.net, what have you two contributed to the website yourselves, or have you administrated for like the sort of community survey?
Yeah, so I have done some work on the website itself, but right now it's mostly being handled by our other admin Amir, who people might also know from his YouTube channel, where he has become quite known in the community actually, for doing stuff on like frame data and um interesting tidbits within the code for PvP stuff. So really, he was perfect to um, be the one to kind of be the headmaster of it all. But it's been fun to work on. It's been stressful at times because there's a lot of info dumps that we need to do. The way we go about writing the articles is a whole process, and a lot of stuff needs to be edited down or made more concise, or next thing we know, the values that we had are maybe slightly off by a few decimals, which do change things. And then we need to go back and do a bunch of tests, and especially given how the state of the game was even just a few months ago, there was a lot of stuff that needed to be written about in a kind of short period that just made it very hard at times. But it's been a very fruitful project, and we're currently in the process of overhauling it now and having it updated to everything on the newest patch and the issues that are still present in the game. And I'm excited to see if FromSoft ends up looking at it and making some of those changes again. Fingers
That's all.
crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed indeed. I think they will, though. I mean, if they've done it once, I think they'll take your recommendations to heart.
We shall see.
I saw one of the things that really impressed me, and I'm like you mentioned it with the whole just slight changes in numbers throwing off all the calculations, but the Google Doc links that you have on the website that take to the poise calculator or like the weapon ranges or like making all sorts of just different utilities through Google Docs was so cool to see. It's just all like, it's all there for people to just pick up and use on their own accounts, which is very, I don't know, it's nice to see that that kind of resource is available in the community.
Yeah, that was the other main point of the website. Besides just getting out there what we believe needed fixing in the game, was we also and with the Discord as well, um wanted to make it so, unlike previous games where you just find random sheets in obscure streamer discords, and people would hold on to tech they found, and not tell anyone else, and keep it to themselves. We kind of want all this knowledge to be available to everyone, so anyone could get into the game. They could take advantage of frame data, poise values, and have a good understanding of it without having to trek across the internet just to find what they want, if it even exists in the first place. um so yeah, I'm really happy with how it's come out, and hopefully after this overhaul, it gets even better.
It's
I
your
will
own
say,
Library of Alexandria.
In a way,
Alexander.
Yeah, our Library of Alexander Shard.
What were you going to say, Faraday?
Oh, I was just gonna say, coming into this as a play, because I came into ERPvP as a player to begin with before I was on the team itself, and seeing that research channel, where you guys were doing tests, where you guys had all of the materials, those weapon range breakdowns was insane to see coming into this. Actually being able to look at like how far an attack is going, which ones are coming out first, the poise breakpoints, just seeing all of the numbers and frame data you guys were throwing around, it really did feel like you guys were fostering as open of a community as possible to make everyone better, give people as that information, yeah, give people the information they needed to just be better players, which was fantastic, really great to see. And I really appreciated it, and it's something I definitely want to like see keep going on as time goes on, because that was lacking in Dark Souls 3 in my opinion. And those tools were not really accessible to just your random people coming into a Discord server. Those were blocked behind people, this is my table. I'm not going to share it around. Don't give it around to too many people. Like things got kind of buried under and kept in their little corners. It's really nice to see all that information get spread around on the website and in the Discord.
Yeah, it's nice that everything is just widely available. I heard a little bit about how rough Dark Souls 3 was to like collect data on for special technical moves, and then like you said with your talk about the fundamentals earlier on, Kosorm, you mentioned that they were so vital in those duels, so I imagine that whoever had the technical expertise would generally come out on top, which isn't exactly the community you want to foster for continued active player bases.
Yeah, I even feel sadly some of that has transferred over to this game, to the extent that there's just a completely different world between the casual players of the PvP rather than the competitive players. Both having a completely different idea of what the meta is or what's broken, what's not, and I think there's a divide there that we've been trying to cross, but it is um, a bit ingrained at this point, and it can be hard to do. I think both sides of the community kind of look at each other sometimes with a little bit of disdain. And it's really unfortunate to see, and I think it was born out of in prior games, everyone kind of being more hush hush with stuff and not really making everything as open. But progress is being made on that front, so we'll see where that goes.
Yes, I guess we will see how it goes. So, speaking of the community as a whole, eldenringpvp.net put on a player survey that I think it got, like over 1,000 or easily more than
It
1,000
was
people that
10,000, I think.
10,000, okay. I was hesitant to say it if I was wrong, but that's awesome.
Yeah, I believe we made a post on the subreddit. We actually coordinated with people on the subreddit, like moderators, to get it pinned. Um, and so we were able to. Sorry, this is r/Elden Ring, by the way. We were able to get a lot of responses for this, which was very valuable information and kind of confirmed a lot of what we expected, even with prior games, which is you know the PvP. As much as people who don't like the PvP, you know, will often say you kind of need it in these games to keep people playing. There's only so much PvE you can play, and I know there's hundreds of hours worth of content in this game, but years down the line, I mean, you still saw games like Dark Souls 3 5 years later with a ton of activity before Elden Ring released, mostly because of invasions or duels. It keeps people excited. It keeps people wanting to play your games further and for a lot longer. And it was really kind of sad to see in the survey that a lot of people kind of quit off of the game because of the PvP. was so bad. Like after they finished their playthrough, they put it down and started doing other things. Even people on the subreddit.
Yeah, some of the die-hard fans that had carried over from Dark Souls 3 were turned off of the duels in Elden Ring because of the lack of early balance or the issues with duels rather than getting the more chaotic. And I guess I'd say personally that group combat is more tuned for Elden Ring, where you die easier, have access to more offense and stuff. So it is very sad to see that just long-time community members as well as new fans both just fell out of the game when there could have been a PvP community from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, even just at the last question of the community survey, would an improved multiplayer system encourage you to play Elden Ring more? The vast majority of people, 7,416 out of the 10,000, said that it would very much encourage them to play Elden Ring more. Another 1,700, almost 1,800, said that it would somewhat make them encourage, or sorry, somewhat encourage them to play Elden Ring more. With not even 1,000 people saying that it wouldn't change anything at all for them. Like that says something. I feel
That's
like
interesting. Not heard that number before. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's telling because it just goes to show that almost everyone that answered the survey had that question in their mind to some extent, and then answered it at the end is just they aren't happy with what they got.
very unfortunate. But I do have to give FromSoft credit where credit is due. They have been really putting in the effort to make the changes to make the multiplayer better. I think personally that was the weakest aspect of Elden Ring on release. And now they're going on to do stuff like even having PvP specific values, which is something we hadn't seen in the series before, but it desperately needed. And isn't just something simple for them to do either. You know, it requires a overhaul of their systems, and I think it's really telling that they want to correct the either mistakes on release or maybe they didn't have enough time. I mean, I know arenas were in the game from day one, uh, and they just didn't have enough time before release to work on them fully. And I think PvP in general was kind of shafted in that way.
If I were to make a bold presumption about the developers' like scope of production during like Elden Ring's development, I'd say that they meant to leave PvP to last so that they could get the readily available player base as like data to use from their updates then after, eventually culminating in the Colosseum update. But I'm not sure if they expected the kind of response they'd get or how imbalanced some of their early stuff would be. Like the Hoarfrost Stomp was something that got nerfed multiple times.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
think
I haven't heard in a long time. Wow.
yeah, right. I think it's mostly they've never made a game this big before, and they had to do it through the pandemic, which definitely slowed things down by a few years getting to release. And it would make sense that PvP is the last thing that they work on, considering you know PvP is what weapons you're using, where you're actually doing the duels, how players health scaling works at different parts of the game, like um getting the balance of the PvE experience first was probably on their mind more than anything, because you can't have PvP balance without first having a balanced PvE. And then they kind of had a limit on what they could do before the game released, and some things, like, I mean, even quest lines in PvE weren't in 1.0, and got introduced at like 1.03, was it? When the ending of the Nefalilu quest line.
Yeah, I believe that was
Yeah.
1.03.
So there was a lot of things that I believe if they had more time to work on, they would have. But due to either publisher pressure or any other reason, really, they were just unable to. So again, it's really good to see that now, even if it is coming a little late. It's definitely better than nothing, and I'm very happy with where they've been taking things. A lot of respect there.
Definitely a lot of respect to see that they keep updating the game to the standards that they have. And to me, it makes sense that they've cut stuff. Although it is always disappointing to see things that could have been. Like I've looked into the Azimi Silver Tier quest line a bunch and all of the general content of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, no, me as well. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So, finishing out, saving the best for last. You two, you're both active in the PvP community, and you work to host tournaments. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so apart from just the Elden Ring PvP Discord and website, I have personally worked with other tournament organizers in the community to make something called the Duelist Event Network, the Den, which whose purpose is to have high quality production values for anybody who wants to host a tournament. They just have to come to us with whatever rule set they want, any funding they might want to add, and we just kind of do it all pro bono. And or we're trying to push forward what's possible with tournaments in this game. The production value compared to past games is completely different.
Night and day.
Yeah, and it's kind of the hope that once DLC comes out and people see not only where the PvP is at, but where the tournaments are at, production value wise, that maybe people will stay a little bit more. And Duelist Event Network's been hosting Elden Ring PvP's Festival of Combat series of 2022, which is actually about to end. The finals are next week at time of recording. It's been pretty successful. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of learning experiences. It is definitely a lot harder than it might look to organize 16 players, as well as at least 4 or 5 members of staff at any given time to have things running. But it's definitely been a treat to be able to do, and I'm really happy with the community response.
Yeah, I looked at your latest tournament yesterday as of recording, and was really impressed. Like, I just liked the way that you set up everyone. You were fighting at that narrow court, like that small room at Stormvale Castle, I believe.
Yeah,
And
that's the kind of the default competitive arena because of its size and shape.
which goes back to our earlier conversation on the Colosseums being too big, because that square is smaller than that center circle, it looks like. Or at least the same size. It's very small compared to the massive Colosseums.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping for a smaller Colosseum with DLC or something like that, because we really could use a more like uh, just that smaller playing stage. Where you can corner people. Positioning is really important there.
That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Do you
Fingers
have any
crossed.
ideas about how your tournaments will continue now that the Colosseum update is out? Do you think you'll use the expanded game modes to try and fit those in, or is that still up for debate?
So as far as 1v1 tournaments go, we're gonna continue to use Stormvale and the systems we have. As far as 2v2 and 3v3 tournaments, which we do plan on doing, it's kind of up in the air right now, because we host all our tournaments on a mod called Seamless Co-op, which you might have heard of. And we work with the developers on that a little bit to make things easier for us to host tournaments on. And as far as staging goes, doing it through the Colosseums themselves might be a little hard, because having a world host in there that actually does all the camera work might be a little difficult to set up using the Colosseum system. But we'll see what happens with Seamless Co-op and how they implement stuff with the new update. And maybe we can use the Colosseums for that. Fingers crossed.
It'd certainly make for a cool looking arena. But I get it if they, if things don't work out from a technical perspective. All I can
Yeah.
imagine is that unseen talisman going on 2 people in a 3v3 fight, and then you turn it into a 2v2 with 2 spectators. But that's not
I've been
too
wanting to
efficient.
try that.
That is something that definitely we could do and we have thought about. But yeah.
So when you structure your tournaments, do you structure them in a bracket, or do you do a kind of point system?
Yeah, so we do have a bracket. For example, the Elden Ring PvP tournaments that we do, the Discord. The system there is a leaderboard where you can use the bot that's there to set up matches with other players. And there's a whole elo there, and you gain points or lose points based off of how you're doing, and people are invited through that based on their rank, and then they get put into the bracket, and based on their
Okay, and for the bracket matches, do they do it like a single elimination, or is it best of 3?
It's best of 3 up until semifinals. In which case it then turns to best of 5, and then sometimes finals are best of 9. We've been experimenting with.
That makes
Um,
sense given how easy it is to die.
yeah, and then everyone who's participated in the Elden Ring PvP Discord tournaments, if they've won matches or gone to the tournaments based on their records in those tournaments, they get festival points, which then go towards the majors and the finals that are about to occur, where all the best players through the past year, based on their festival points, then get seeded into uh, the bracket for finals. So this next one's going to be invitational, but most of them are specifically leaderboard based.
Well, that's exciting to hear. I bet we'll see some great players at that one.
Absolutely. Just finished working on the bracket the other night, and it's looking pretty stacked.
Well, I'm excited to see it when it comes out. I noticed that your matches are generally commentated. Generally, like, who does the commentating, and do you switch that out between seasons, or how does that
Uh,
process look like?
yeah. So on the den side of things, we're always looking for new people, right? We're always open to if people want to do casting or do the OBS work or the world hosting or even password management is a real important one. If someone wants to come in and cast, we kind of look at their ability, teach them if they need to know certain things or kind of improve their skills a little bit, and then we put them out there. Usually, we'll have 2 people casting at one time. Um, our most prolific casters have probably been End of the Lion and LBU. But we have new people coming in, like Sadia Moon, for example, who hosted yesterday's tournament, who has quickly become a fan favorite. Um, and we hope to just keep growing our base and the members of our staff, um, and just get more faces out there. That this has really just been a community effort, both the Discord and the Den. It's been a community effort getting everybody together to put on something cool for the community and keep stuff going.
Yeah, it's nice to see that. So I know that we've talked about the fact that both of you PvP quite a bit. So I'm assuming you've competed in some of your own tournaments before. What's that been like?
It's been a surreal experience, honestly. The production value, seeing just how all the work that goes into these things, getting into these tournaments has been so much fun. Um, and g- the people that you meet in these and that are like playing this game and all bringing their own styles and approaches to the weapons that they're using, um, has also just been fascinating to see and explore. The tournaments that the server puts up and den hosts and it's been all around like such a just fun, exhilarating time like over the past few months. And with finals coming up, I know like we've got some cool stuff planned for it. Um, it's to both play in and run these things has been honestly a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So what builds do you guys personally use?
Personally, I use Power Stance Great Spears and Serpent Hunter, 2 Vortex setups.
I myself really enjoy power stance straight swords, specifically the Carrion Knight's sword. Coming from Dark Souls 3, it was very easy to pick up, and it's quickly just become a favorite of mine.
Okay, so is there anything now that we're wrapping up the episode? Is there anything else that you guys would like to bring to the table? Anything that we missed?
Faraday, can you think of anything?
No, honestly, it's been pretty well rounded.
Okay, well that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. This has been the Roundtable Hold, and this has been Elden Kings. Is there anything you guys want to shout out before I shut it off?
Elden Ring PvP Discord. Please join. Please participate in the ladder. It's a lot of fun. It's not as foreboding as a lot of people might expect coming into the community. Foreboding the right word?
Yeah.
Everyone's very
ominous,
welcoming. Yeah, everyone's very welcoming. It's a real fun time, and you'll learn a lot. And please watch our Den tournaments at twitch.tv/the den_er. All our tournaments are there. Be glad to have you by.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
you'll find links to all of those below. Definitely give them a check. Definitely give them a look. Thanks for joining, guys. This is Gideon the Half-Knowing. Have a good one.